today after an intensive 2-year hunt. The feds finally caught up with the most wanted mobster in the United States, Anthony Gaspipe Casso.
There is one particular name in the shady world of organized crime that still freezes the blood and sends shivers down spines. And that is Anthony Casso, known as the Gaspipe, both a feared mobster and a ruthless murderer. In today's episode, we profile one of the most brutal enforcers the Mafia has ever known, the details of the life and crimes of Anthony Casso, a man who, according to some estimates, left a trail of up to 100 murders in his wake. From his rise to prominence as a Lucchese family underboss in the turbulent 1980s, to a surprising twist that would upset the very foundations of the Mafia. Make sure to stay until the very end to learn the horrific truths behind Casso's reign of terror, along with his stunning transition into a government informant. A change of events that would astound even the most seasoned fans of criminality. It's all here in today's bite-sized true crime recap. The mob's most chilling enforcer, Anthony Gaspipe Casso. On May 21, 1942, Anthony Gaspipe Casso was born in Brooklyn, New York City's southern borough. His parents, Michael and Margaret Casso, immigrants to the United States from Italy in the late 1800s, had 3 children, of which he was the youngest. Right from the beginning, Casso had loose ties to the mob via his grandfather, Salvatore Gravano, who was a made man in the infamous Genovese criminal family who held sway over the Brooklyn docks. Casso didn't enjoy school and quit at the age of 16 to work as a longshoreman with his father. However, the youthful Casso possessed other talents. Being a skilled marksman, he was well known for his precise pistol shots on the rooftop that he and his friends used as a shooting range, and was even able to earn some money by shooting hawks that attacked the flocks of local pigeon keepers. Casso married Lillian Del Duca, a local of his South Brooklyn area, in 1968, and together they went on to have a son and a daughter. Casso, however, wasn't the most devoted husband. He was seriously involved with Rosemarie Bellotti, another South Brooklyn girl, before he even met Lillian, and following his wedding to Lillian, Casso kept Rosemarie as his covert mistress in a home in Mount Olive, New Jersey. Lillian didn't learn about this relationship until the FBI detained Casso there in 1993, at which point she felt betrayed and severely hurt. Anthony Casso was quite the troublemaker as a young man. In the 1950s, he spent time with the legendary South Brooklyn Boys gang, even finding himself arrested in 1958 following a fight with a rival Irish gang. Casso's criminal ties were extensive, with his godfather holding a high position in the Genovese crime family. His father advised him to stay away from crime, but Gaspipe, as Casso Jr. was called, supposedly earned the nickname after admiring his father's reputed choice of weapon. Casso joined the Lucchese crime family, the 3rd largest gang in New York City's underground, at the ripe old age of 21, and began working with Christopher Fernari at the Brooklyn docks as a loan shark and collector. A story of him breaking most of a man's toes by dropping a heavy weight of luggage upon the man's foot to test his new boots, an act he believed to be a joke, gives an indication of the lack of empathy he held for human pain and suffering. Casso was detained 5 times between 1965 and 1977 for various offenses, including drug and gun attacks, but none of those prosecutions succeeded because witnesses wouldn't testify against him, because they rightly feared reprisals. Because of this, he was able to advance up the ranks, and by 1979, he joined Vittorio Amuso as a made man in the Lucchese crime family. Together, Casso and Amuso carried out a variety of nefarious activities, including extorting construction and trucking firms, trafficking heroin, and operating gambling operations. By the end of the 1980s, they even had a group of safecrackers known as the Bypass Gang, who had stolen over $100 million. When John Gotti, a captain in the Gambino family, planned the murder of his own boss, Paul Castellano, in December 1985, the Mafia world was shaken. Without the commission's consent, this bold move infuriated influential people like Genovese leader Vincent Gigante and Lucchese boss Anthony Corallo. To exact revenge, they resorted to Anthony Casso's murderous skills. Casso and his colleague Vittorio Amuso learned about a meeting John Gotti had scheduled for April 13, 1986 at the Veterans and Friends Club in Brooklyn. According to informant Daniel Marino, they set off explosives in Frank DeCicco's automobile, who was an underling of Gotti. However, only DeCicco was killed due to Gotti abruptly canceling his appearance. As things unraveled, Corallo was found guilty of racketeering in November, elevating Amuso to the position of family patriarch. Casso, at this point confident in his power, became his consigliere. Suspected informants had no chance because Casso either personally carried out the hits or had them ordered. For a monthly cost of $4,000, Casso paid corrupt NYPD officers Louis Eppolito and Stefan Caracappa to supply intelligence about informants and anticipated indictments. This allowed Casso to stay one step ahead of the game. These cops even murdered 8 people on Casso's behalf. The FBI began closely observing Casso as he lived a wealthy lifestyle, spending lavishly on expensive suits and fine food. By the time Casso was promoted to underboss in 1990, he had already started executing numerous people he suspected were informants. Casso received information regarding an impending racketeering indictment from the Brooklyn Federal Court in May 1990 from informants in the NYPD. Casso and Amuso fled because they feared being apprehended, which was the case for Amuso in Pennsylvania a year later. However, Casso kept operating in secrecy as underboss while appointing Alfonso D'Arco to the position of boss. Casso ordered almost 20 mob hits during his years in hiding, even attempting to kill his own architect due to unpaid bills for his million-dollar residence. He also attempted to kill a Lucchese captain, Peter Chiodo, whom he suspected to be an informant, as well as Chiodo's sister. Later in 1992 and 93, he attempted to kill a federal prosecutor and a judge. Alfonso D'Arco, realizing that Casso was dangerous and worried that he or his family could be Casso's next victims, eventually contacted the FBI to become a government witness, while Casso continued his deadly activities. Finally, on January 19, 1993, Casso was caught at his mistress's house in New Jersey. Surprisingly, given his practice of killing suspected informants, Casso reached out to FBI agent Richard Rudolph and suggested becoming an informant. Casso was then quickly transferred to the federal prison at La Tuna, close to El Paso, Texas, where he started his debriefing while staying in his infamous Valachi suite. "Every time I stepped out of the house, I committed a crime," revealed Casso during his first debriefing session. "Do you really think I'll remember them all?" In an unexpected turn of events, however, Casso started naming names, starting with the 2 lauded NYPD detectives, Stefan Caracappa and Louis Eppolito, who had worked for him and committed 8 killings at his direction. These detectives had also divulged the identities of police and FBI informants to Casso, which had resulted in countless other murders. Charles Rose and Gregory O'Connell, federal prosecutors from New York City, arrived in Texas as Casso's debriefing went on. He named numerous other organized crime figures, including Genovese boss Vincent Gigante. In order to delay his own trial, Casso even admitted to planning the murder of federal prosecutor Charles Rose and the assassination of federal judge Nickerson. Casso initially admitted to 12 murders, but then added 24 more. However, when it was discovered that he had lied about his financial assets and denied being involved in some crimes, questions began to be raised about his reliability. FBI agents gave a lie detector test as they became increasingly doubtful, which Casso failed. Anthony Casso sealed his fate on March 1, 1994, in a legal proceeding where he pled guilty to an astounding 70 offenses, including racketeering, extortion, and his participation in 15 murders. Following Salvatore or Sammy the Bull Gravano, Casso became the second underboss of a New York criminal family to break his oath and work with the police. As a result, he was put in the witness protection program. He didn't last long, however, and was removed from the program in 1998 for alleged misbehavior, which included paying guards, hitting other prisoners, and fabricating information regarding Gravano and Alfonso D'Arco in 1997. In July 1998, Casso's counsel made an attempt to oppose federal prosecutors, but their efforts were unsuccessful. Judge Frederick Block then imposed the maximum term imaginable: 455 years in jail with no chance of parole. Casso wrote a letter to a close friend in 2006 in which he expressed his sincere regret over his choice to assist the authorities. Surprisingly, Casso acknowledged that despite becoming one, he still hated informers, and increasingly himself for doing so. While incarcerated at the USP Tucson, Casso received a prostate cancer diagnosis in 2009. He had COVID-19 by November 2020 and was experiencing health challenges, including being in a wheelchair and dealing with lung troubles. On December 15, 2020, he passed away at the age of 78 due to complications from COVID-19, despite having his request for compassionate discharge being rejected on November 28, 2020. Anthony Gaspipe Casso was without a doubt perhaps the most violent, ruthless enforcer and underboss witnessed in the history of the American Mafia. And the irony of him hating and murdering informers, yet choosing to become one himself, was real. It was William Y. Duran, head of the FBI's New York Criminal Division, who truly summed up Casso's nature and rule, though, with this one sentence: "He's not brilliant. He's a psychotic killer."